are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Greetings and welcome everyone to another episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How are we all doing today, everyone? I hope you all had at least a decent weekend because let's be honest and let's be straightforward with it. It's been extremely tough for everyone. Even if you were just watching the news or anything like that, it's just... It really has been frustrating, and it has just been pretty difficult, no matter who you are or even no matter where you live. It's just a wake-up call that we kind of live in a bit of a cruel world, but we're trying to do the best we can in order to make things better. And the reason why that I do want to mention this, and this is something that I just want to get out of the way and that it needs to be mentioned, is the very unfortunate news that a few days ago, the Supreme Court in the United States has overturned Roe versus Wade, which was pretty much the law in which states were not allowed to do anything when it comes to abortion. And now that they have overturned it, states pretty much have the call to go and make whatever legislations they want to do when it comes to abortion, including putting an immediate ban, which some states have done so immediately. By the way, thank you, Meta Ralph, for the subscription. And it has just been completely chaotic in terms of the reactions, but I think it is safe to say that the grand majority felt massively devastated about it. It is one of the most tragic events that has occurred in this year so far, like even in the same level as to what happened to the Uvalde mass shooting. And this is a decision, like I've already discussed about my thoughts and how I am pro-choice in the matter, that personally I do believe that yes, abortion should be available everywhere and that people should have access to it. And on top of that, if you are a religious person and your religion states that you shouldn't have an abortion, and that's perfectly fine. As long as you only restrict yourself, that's perfectly okay and that's perfectly respectable. But when you're using your beliefs in order to go and enforce it upon others, that's when you're using them in the completely wrong way. And that's when you're turning your beliefs into some form of dictatorship, like you're bullying others because of what you are believing. And that is exactly what the Supreme Court and what Republicans in America are doing right now. And this is a decision that goes against everything that America stands for. Yes, even though I am Canadian, I know what America stands for, what is their beliefs, and trying to ban abortion in general is something that goes against it. Not only does it go against liberty and freedom, considering that you are taking away women's freedom of their own choices of what to do with their own bodies, but it also goes against the 14th Amendment in the Constitution. And on top of that, this is something that goes against religious rights as well, considering that there are some religions, including Judaism, that they demand to have a pro-choice point of view, to have abortion be accessible to everyone. And if you are going against their religion, then obviously you just want to ban abortion for selfish and nationalist reasons. And this is the part that it's so frustrating, and it is easy to get angry about this entire case. And even I've had a few episodes where I just felt completely upset and so frustrated just seeing the news and seeing social media regarding this whole situation where the Supreme Court decided to take away women's rights to their own bodies. And especially the case that no man should ever be allowed to think that abortion should be banned. And this is something that I have mentioned before, but if you know any man, any male who thinks that abortion should be banned, then those people should immediately be labeled as criminals. Those are people who are domestic abusers. Those are people who would sexually assault women, and those are people who would even go as far as sexually assault children. Anyone with that mindset would go and be labeled, would be a criminal, would like most people who would do these crimes in the first place are those that want to have abortion to be banned, because those are people who have the mindset thinking that they have control of what women should do with their bodies. And that is something that is completely wrong. And these are people that should be held accountable and should immediately go to prison without any question about their innocence or whatever. No man should ever be allowed to think that abortion should be banned, or that they believe that they have control of what women should do with their bodies. It is flat out wrong, and it should be it should be considered a part of a mental illness. But as I state before, again, this is something that is it's so easy to get upset over, and the majority of people feel the same way, considering that most people do believe that abortion is a right and that it should be accessible to everyone. And that is why that at this point, the best thing you can do is to take action, and especially Democrats right now. It is no secret that right now nationalists are pretty much really going out of their way to enforce their beliefs onto America, and literally basically taking the same steps that Germany did back in 1930 to turn it into what is essentially a white supremacist country. And Democrats need to stop playing nice. That they need to go and take action to call out nationalism, to restrict the beliefs, to criminalize the entire mindset of nationalism, and regulate conservatism as well, to force them to come closer to the center so that they stop enforcing their white supremacist ideologies, to stop heading towards that white supremacist route right there. Because a lot of this is what people feared what could happen when Donald Trump got elected back in 2016. And right now, a lot of those fears are becoming more and more and more true, which really stems the fact, I know this is a controversial thing to say, but I do not apologize this when I say that Donald Trump and everyone who supports him are the worst things to happen to the United States since 9/11. They are a cancer to their families, they are a cancer to their community, and they are a cancer to their country. And the only way that America can be great again is when nationalism and the Trump brand of beliefs is permanently silenced. And that's why people, and Democrats especially, need to go and take action to go and treat nationalists like how they treat them. To say, screw your beliefs, screw your rules, screw your rights, and to go stop them on their tracks so they could go and take action to protect Americans, to make sure that vaccines and abortions and equal rights can be available to anyone and all, and that hate speech and that brand and that kind of nationalist supremacist belief can be permanently criminalized, and that anyone who wants to go and express hate speech goes to prison. And that's why you need to go and take action right now. You have, if you want something to be done, then you have to take action. Of course, if you live in the United States and you are over 18, then you must vote Democrat. That by doing nothing, then you're just leading the way for things to go and make things worse. But if you can vote, please go and take action, and please go vote for blue so that more people can actually do something to go and reverse whatever damages these nationalists are going to do. And also, for anyone else, and not just for people in the US, but people around the world, one thing you can do in order to go and actually help out is to donate. And a good place would be Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is one of the big companies that actually goes out to provide safe and legal abortions so that more women, more children, and more future generations can actually be safe, so that they can continue living their lives, so that they can actually go and when they would deliver a baby, there would be no trouble at all. In fact, the big conspiracies about abortions is actually untrue. More babies can actually be saved if abortion is actually legal. And not only that, but even on this website, PlannedParenthood.org, you can actually learn more about abortions, and you can learn a lot about the reproductive system, where you can, and just about healthcare in general, where you can learn about health and wellness, cancer, birth control, abortions, gender identity, sexual orientations, pregnancies, STDs, and all that kind of stuff. So I highly recommend that you go and support Planned Parenthood right now, because you know that these nationalists, they're not going to stop there. In fact, they're already in talks to try to ban gay marriage, to try to ban birth control. Like, they really are forcing America to become a white nationalist country and stripping away so many freedoms to look exactly like Germany back in the 1930s and early 1940s. So this is just to go and get this out of my system. And I mean, there might be a few more things that I want to say, especially to go and take down nationalism. But then again, I might end up breaking a few terms and conditions with either like YouTube or Twitch or anything like that. But this is all to go and say, please go and take action. And that even though politics is not necessarily a fun subject to go and talk about, this is the best time to go and take action. That if you want less of this to go and happen, then you should take action in order to ensure that these nationalists don't make things worse and worse, not just for people in the United States, but for people all around the world. So the sooner that nationalism can be criminalized, the better things will be. But again, this is a very tough subject to go and discuss, but this is the best that we can do so far, to go and actually take action to help those in need. And yeah, it's not a fun subject, but it needs to be said. Okay, so now with that out of the way, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you guys, are you all prepared for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Are you all ready, folks? Let me hear it now. Okay, let's see. Yes. Okay, hopefully I didn't take I didn't take too much out of your system after that whole talk. Okay, that is good. That is great to see. And I think with that said, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And how ironic that we're pretty much at the point where we're kind of doing a bit of a smooth segue, where we are going to be keeping into the subject of having unwanted children. And with this one, oh boy, I thought I would be done with this kid. I thought things would be over, and like, yeah, maybe we've heard some news before that, oh, maybe he is going to be coming back, maybe he shall return, and like, there might be a few little extra things, but no, he is back in full force. He has returned from the spawns of hell, from the depths of hell to which he has come. And he is going to bring a lot more than we expect, and in a brand new dimension as well. So with that said, let's go and begin by talking about Caillou. Yes, folks, Caillou is back, and he shall be back in full force on Peacock. And this is actually an announcement coming to us from NBC Universal and Wildbrain, the latter in which is the company that has brought us that actually owns the rights to Caillou. And from there, they have announced that there is going to be a brand new animated series, and not just an animated series, but a brand new CG animated series in which they are already going to be doing a full season's worth of Caillou episodes. Specifically, they are already producing 52 11-minute Caillou episodes, all of which are going to be available exclusively on Peacock. And on top of that, they've already mentioned that Peacock is going to indeed be the home of the previously announced Caillou special. So you probably remember a few months back, they have revealed that when it comes to Caillou, they are going to do several different specials. Well, 5 different specials, including one based on Christmas, on Halloween, celebrating family, summer vacation, and even talking about the importance of bullying. So from there, they also decided that on top of that, they want to go and make an additional Caillou show that's all in CG. And by the way, I do have a couple of quotes that I would like to go and read here. The first of which coming from the president of WildBrain, Josh Sherba, in which he states, "We're delighted to join with Peacock to expand the Caillou universe. This is yet another example of how we've reinvigorated treasured brands from our evergreen library. For over 25 years, preschoolers have connected with Caillou because they can see themselves in these highly relatable stories. Caillou is a kid just like them, facing everyday problems and learning about the world around him. With a new look and stories where Caillou explores the world through wonderful flights of imagination, Caillou is better than ever. We're confident that today's kids and their families are going to love it." We even have a quote here coming from the VP of Kids and Content from NBC Universal's television and streaming division, Christopher Updike, in which Christopher says, "We are overjoyed to work with the team at WildBrain for a new CG animated version of the beloved Caillou series that won over the hearts of young audiences from around the world. Peacock is committed to enriching the minds of a new generation to promote emotional expression, creative thinking, and dreaming big. We can't wait for parents and their kids to see these pivotal themes come to life in Caillou and all of Peacock's kids' offerings." And that's the major thing that they have announced right now. Now, technically, they did not necessarily state of when this show is actually going to be released. We don't know if there's going to be an official release date that will be coming soon to Peacock, but all we do know so far is that there is indeed going to be a CG animated Caillou series on top of the 5 specials that we would eventually get. And oh boy, I never thought I would see myself talking about Caillou again. Mainly because of the fact that, well, as of recent, I have gathered a bit of a brand new reputation of being known as the Caillou guy, where because of the Caillou history video that I've made last year, it became a lot more popular than even I expected, and became my second video on my channel to ever surpass 1 million views, which actually did occur at the beginning of this year, and it was such a wonderful milestone to achieve, and I couldn't thank you all enough for that. But it does feel great, actually, that now I have gathered, I guess I could say, a better reputation of the fact that I am the guy who told people the history of Caillou. And I mean, considering the other things that I was well known for, it's kind of, it kind of feels nice to have like a fresh update where now I am known to tell people about the horrors of Caillou and like how he came to be and why he is one of the most hated cartoon characters in history. And honestly, I thought that we would see the end of Caillou. I remember at the beginning of last year when so many people on the internet pretty much celebrated the fact that PBS would no longer air Caillou in the United States. Now, even though there might be a few other places around the world that Caillou would still be airing, but people were just celebrating of the fact that they no longer have to go and air Caillou, at least in one of the biggest markets that Caillou is in. But nope, it doesn't seem like it is the end, and WildBrain decided that they are hungry for more Caillou. And what we do have, like instead of a release date, instead of a trailer, we do have our first ever look of what this Caillou series looks like. And I just gotta say, yeesh, man, I mean, look at this. I don't know if we can expand on this picture, but my God, actually, I do have a better idea. Here, let me just go and take this. I'll just take this on the side, and I want to go, do I even have it, or just want to see something? Okay, yeah, right over here. So here, let's go and expand on this. Here, now you can get a good look of what this looks like, and oh boy, where the fridge do I even begin? Like, okay, I just want to say that none of this is a knock against the animators, okay? They're just doing their jobs. They're just doing what they have to do. But I really want to know the creative decision that went onto this. Like, it looks like a very rushed project. And I mean, maybe it's just to keep things very simple because this is a preschool series and they want to do what they can in order to match the original style of the animation of Caillou back in the late 1990s or even in the original books. But in this case here, it's just, oh my God, it's just, you know what this looks like? It looks like a really bad PS2 game. Honestly, this would be acceptable like 2 decades ago. But in 2022, even if it is meant for like streaming or for television, nah, man, this does not fly. Like, number one, there's barely any textures, period. Like the textures of their skin is the exact same as the textures of some of their clothing. It doesn't look nice. Or like maybe like if it is more in high definition, maybe there is a bit more. But just from what I see, like there's barely much textures that's barely going on. And then you have their face. Oh my God. What is this face? Because the thing is that it doesn't look like there is much depth to it. Like if you look at Caillou, he looks like he has a round head and any additional features, they just slapped onto him. Like, yeah, he has a nose, but then you look at his eyes, you look at his mouth, they look like stickers. They look like they come from Robot Chicken, where you know in Robot Chicken where like they would have the puppet models and instead of switching like jaws or like switching heads in order to have like a fully articulated mouth with a lot of depth, they just slap in like just a little mouthpiece. They slap in like a happy face or an O face or whatever. This looks exactly that. And you look at Caillou's mouth, there's not much, it just looks like a sticker. It's just slap onto there. In fact, like already this style that they're presenting, you know what this reminds me of? I don't know if you guys have played this, but it reminds me of those PS1 Rugrats games. I just want to know from the chat wall, has anybody have actually played any of those PS1 Rugrats game, whether it be like the Search for Reptar or Studio Tour? Has anyone ever played that? Let me know. Like, have you guys actually played it? No? Or have you guys at least heard about it? Just want to. Oh, okay. We do have one. Have you guys at least heard about the game? At least. Okay. Some people. Okay. One has played the Search for Reptar. Okay, a few people, okay, some have heard of it. Okay, good. So we can be on the same page on this. This honestly looks like so far it looks like it's doing the same style of those Rugrats animations where like you got a very basic CG body, and then like when it comes to their faces, it's like it's an additional texture. Like, okay, I'll admit that I was wrong about the textures because there is actually some textures going on, and that is with the eyes, with the eyebrows, and with the mouth. Like, that weird technique they try to do where like the eyes and the mouth are textures, and sometimes when they switch around to make it look like lip syncing or when they're blinking, like there's no transition. It's just like from one immediate mouth movement to the next. That's honestly the impression that I'm getting with all this, and it just does not look good, honestly. Like, it just, like, I'm not saying it's unwatchable, but it just looks a little too basic. Again, this looks like something that maybe this would be acceptable back in 2002, but in 2022, nah, man, this just, like, oh God, it just doesn't look right. It really doesn't. And again, I want to know from the animators. I would like to know, like, from someone working at WildBrain, what was the creative process? Like, what led them? Like, what are the ideas that led them to this specific look right over here? And, okay, so, that's enough ranting about the animation, but there's also another thing that I do want to talk about. The fact that, yes, they are doing another Caillou series. How is it that despite the massive backlash, with Caillou being considered one of the most hated cartoon characters in history, why is WildBrain still willing to go and make another Caillou show? Like, what is the idea of that? Why are they willing to go and do so? Well, the truth of the matter is, and I mean, like, maybe not many people would like to go and hear this, Caillou is one of WildBrain's biggest properties. Even though regardless of what you may think of Caillou, you can like him, you can hate him, but at the end of the day, Caillou is actually a very popular cartoon character. Like, yeah, there are children that do unironically watch Caillou and would still unironically watch Caillou to this day, rather it be whenever they would catch them on television or maybe just on YouTube. You know, there are those like big hours long compilations of like Caillou episodes, rather it be some of the more recent stuff that they did in the early 2010s, or even some of like the earlier stuff like back in the late 1990s. Like, there are still kids that would watch that, and there are still people that are willing to go and pay for Caillou. And that's the big reason why they're still doing it, is because there is a big market for Caillou, and that it is indeed one of WildBrain's biggest properties that they do own, and they're not just gonna they're not just gonna go and like keep it there as a sitting duck. They are a business, and they still got to do what they got to do in order to make the most profit with what they have, and especially with something that is as widely known as Caillou, they would have to go and like do something more with it. They can't just rely on the archives of old episodes that they already have. They need to go and produce more content and to keep the legacy of Caillou alive. And honestly, there is one thing that I could say that is actually a little bit positive, believe it or not, and that is actually in regards to the backlash. Because let's face it, we all know that many people hate Caillou. Many people know of the fact that Caillou is one of the most hated cartoon characters, that he's an absolute spoiled brat. And I mean, there's no way that the people working on this show are unaware that there are people that hate Caillou, and a significant amount of people that hate Caillou. And I think what would be a major help for this brand new series is if they would go and actually address that issue. If maybe this is just wishful thinking, that they could find a way to actually update the Caillou character so that he would be a lot less of a brat. Now, I know that some people could argue that this would go against Caillou's nature because, well, technically he's supposed to be depicted as like a typical 4 or 5-year-old boy. And sometimes 4 or 5-year-old boys can often go into tantrums and stuff like that. But in the case of Caillou over here, like a big reason why he is so hated is because he would keep acting like a brat. He would keep acting like some angry white nationalist, like always pissed off and throwing tantrums whenever things don't go his way. But the reason why he's so hated is the fact that he has barely faced any form of consequences whatsoever. The fact that, despite his bad behavior, he doesn't face any consequences, he doesn't face any discipline, he doesn't face any punishments. They just let him do what he wants, and he gets away with whatever he wants. And that's why Caillou has this very infamous reputation. And I think, honestly, what could be beneficial is if they do address that, if they go and update Caillou so that maybe the parents can actually discipline him a little bit, or that if Caillou's behavior is a little bit better, where that he's less like the typical 4 or 5-year-old boy and becomes a bit more like a role model, someone that kids should become like, where he is well behaved, where he is a lot more nice, and he's not going to go out of his way to either pinch or bite his baby sister or whatever. So honestly, that could be one of the good things that maybe they could do at WildBrain. But other than that, though, right now I could say, oh, hell no, I am not excited for this moment that they will be bringing back Caillou. And I mean, I'm just going to say this right now, people. No, I'm not gonna go and I'm not gonna go and watch this show. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, yes, I am the Caillou guy, but I'm not gonna go waste my time and watch 52 11-minute episodes of freaking Caillou. Like, you know how many hours that is? I'm sure you can actually do the math. Wait, can I do the math now? Is that like, okay, wait a minute. That should be almost like, if my math is correct, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's like more than 8 hours of content, isn't it? Like, if you do 52 times 11 minutes, that would be more than 8 hours, right? Like, you could correct me on the chat wall. You guys have access to you guys have access to a calculator, so you can go and correct me on that. And this is not even including the 5 44-minute specials, by the way. Someone mentioned apparently 9+ hours. So is that right? Is it 9+ hours? Okay, okay, so I'm getting 9+ hours, 9.5 hours, 572 minutes. Okay, so you guys get the idea. Ain't nobody got time for that. So I ain't gonna go and waste my time on it, like just watching all those godforsaken episodes. Like, I don't know, maybe in the future there might be some person that would go as far and to go and request that to me on Patreon. But overall, though, yeah, it's just, Caillou is coming back, and I don't know if I'm ready for it. Okay, so with that said, though, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you all, how do you feel about the grand return of Caillou in CG? How do you feel about his look? Are you, excuse me, folks. Are you a little bit more optimistic about his return, that maybe he'll be better? Or are you dreading the worst with his return? Let me know what you guys think. Okay, let's see now. My friend, who had been canceled for 1.5 years and presumed dead, just texted me this. I'm ungrounded, grounded, bitch. I won't lie. I was prepared for the CG specials, but a whole series? Yeah, nah. It doesn't help that Caillou doesn't translate well into CG. Brother looks like an anthropomorphic testicle. Overall, I won't be watching it, but it will be redeemed if they have 2D segments animated entirely in Go Animate. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Because of that, I'm honestly thinking of that one random scene in Escape from Tomorrow, and you just look at Caillou and you're just oh my god, no, even worse. Like, the dad is just looking down at Caillou and he's just thinking to himself, it's a giant testicle. Oh boy. Now let's see what else we got here. I am seriously dumbfounded. While I never watched Caillou growing up since I was more of a Blue's Clues kid, thank God, I am absolutely well aware of how infamous it is. And this reboot looks hideous, and this should have stayed in hell, so hard pass. Seriously, this makes Barney the Dinosaur and Dora the Explorer look like masterpieces by comparison. At least those shows don't teach kids to act like spoiled brats. Exactly, and Wild Brain must be aware. The animators, the filmmakers must all be aware about that spoiled brat reputation, and if they don't do something about it, oh boy, there's going to be hell to pay with this series. Okay, let's see. For the comeback of Caillou, oh hell no, and for the animation, WTF is this BS. I never thought that Caillou would come back after the celebration of his death. Basically, everyone will say, today we will celebrate a new heathen, a brand new life. We will rebuild a brand new... Yeah, those celebrations are gone. Sorry about that. Oh boy, yeah, there's going to be some crazy things to happen. Well, like crazy things will be happening when the trailer comes out. Oh boy, where do I even begin? Caillou's transition to CG is very bland and generic at best. I'm not a huge fan of the CG style is presented, which kind of gives me some Coco-Million vibes. And you made an excellent point, Matt. Caillou's character should be less of a brat and more of a nice kid. It would have worked for the new series, but regardless, I'm so not going to watch the series or specials, and Caillou should be grounded for 6 million years. Yeah, I wonder if that's going to make a comeback, actually. I wonder if, like, I wonder if Go Animate is suddenly going to get a revival, and suddenly there's going to be this new wave of, like, Caillou is grounded cartoons because of all this. Who knows? Let's see what else we have here. Prepare yourself, Matt, because I'm going to go hard on this. Good lord, The Devil's Child is back and worse than ever. The animation looks like a crappy Video Brain Quito knockoff. Honestly, they might have updated on Caillou's character to make him actually get conscience. Other than that, Caillou should have stayed grounded for 69 quadrillion decades. Oh my god. I wonder how many people in the chat wall are gonna go and make that grounded joke. Oh boy, let's see. Let's see. Oh my god, Caillou kept coming back to haunt me again. He is my nightmares of the 2000s. Honestly, this Caillou reboot is what's trying to capitalize on the Rugrats reboot. Honestly, I would argue maybe not really. I think it's more of its own reasons. Funny enough, I was thinking of Caillou as a villain for the Chippendale movie Then Sweet Pete. You know, that might not be a bad idea, actually. That could, you might be onto something right there. Imagine instead of like Peter Pan, it would just be this adult Caillou. Honestly, I think the joke would actually land a lot better. And I mean, yeah, I know there is like some things in regards to Caillou that is a little bit controversial if they would do so. Like there was the unfortunate passing of one of the Caillou voice actors that might be not cool really, but honestly, yeah, I could imagine Caillou becoming a villain more so than Peter Pan. All right, I think I'm going to read one more comment before we move on to the next story. You know, this doesn't look too bad for a cutscene in a PS2 game. Wait, it isn't? Besides that, Caillou does feel like he embodies the saying, any publicity is good publicity. Is it possible that he has learned some manners after his show ended? But for now, let's send this boy back to hell. Yeah, and I mean, who knows? Maybe what I'm doing is actually beneficial, and maybe it is actually helpful for this Caillou series that, like, maybe I'm just, like, unintentionally spreading this word and, like, trying to promote the Caillou series. And, again, we don't necessarily have a release date coming out, but who knows? But honestly, the only thing I could do is just, let's hope Wildbrain does listen to the criticisms of Caillou and does make him a little bit better. I don't know. At least I hope. Okay, well, we went on this segment a little longer than I thought, but then again, I did do a long talk about the Roe versus Wade thing. And by the way, before I continue, I would just like to go... actually, no, you know what? I'll save that for later. Never mind. I was thinking about doing my call of action now, but then again, I think I'll save that for another time, actually. Or I'll save it for another story. But anyways, going on to our next segment, we are going to smoothly transition from going to one bald kid on a streaming platform to another bald kid on a streaming platform. But this one, however, is a lot more justifiable of its existence, and there might be something a little bit special, and we see a little bit of a blend between old media with new media. And what I'm talking about is in regards to Oddballs. Yes, for those of you who haven't heard, James Rallison, who you probably know best as the Storytime... sorry, I don't know why I wasn't able to talk, but you probably know James Rallison more as the Storytime animator, TheOdd1sOut. And he has recently announced that he is collaborating with Netflix on a brand new animated series called Oddballs. Now, at this point, James did not put out any specific information regarding the series itself. And the most that we do have is just a few images and a few small clips, including one that was exclusively shown this weekend at the VidCon. And the most that I could gather is that it feels like it's going to be a little bit similar to the animated videos that you would get on YouTube. It's very similar to what you would usually have with the crazy stories of the Odd1sOut, where you got like the little marshmallow guy represented by, which is pretty much the cartoon version of James Rallison, and he's joined by friends, including a talking alligator and this girl with crazy gadgets. And at least the Odd1sOut and the alligator, they live on a trailer that is being held by this giant cactus. And that's the most that we do know so far about this series. And he did mention that there is going to be a release date that's going to be coming out sometime at the end of 2022. Again, this has only been announced, and James did put out a little clip at the end. In fact, I actually do have it here on my source on Animation Magazine. Just this quick little clip. In fact, let's see if we can actually show that little piece right over here. Here, let's just go and check this one out.
Go, 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 go!
me, everything worked out.
Oh, I wanna be a ladder.
So that is Oddballs, and that is that's the most that we got in terms of a public clip of what this show is going to be. And again, the only thing that we do know is that the series is going to be coming out at the end of 2022, and this is something that James Rallison has been working on alongside Evan Banville. So that's the entire situation with this series. And I just want to go and make a statement right now that I've honestly haven't watched The Odd Ones Out. And not to say that I have anything against James Rallison, nothing against the channel, and I have nothing against Storytime animators and stuff like that. It's just that, I don't know, it's just something that's not my cup of tea, and it's not something that I regularly watch, to be honest. I don't know. I watch other stuff instead of stuff like that. But with that said, though, honestly, despite the fact that I haven't watched this content, and I'm going to say right now, I'm not necessarily all that massively interested to go and check out Oddballs. But then again, I will say it is actually pretty cool that this is happening in the first place. It's actually really nice to see that we actually have... it's nice to see that we're actually seeing YouTube stars finally breaking the mold and entering into the Hollywood system, I guess you could say, or really going big in the entertainment industry, where now they can have stuff like their own Netflix show. And it's not every day that you actually do get to hear that some new media people can actually break into old media, where they would be frequently featured in movies or TV shows, or especially where creators on YouTube end up becoming major creators in the entertainment industry. That's often something that even nowadays is considered to be extremely rare, mainly because, well, unfortunately, in the entertainment industry, there is a little bit of that prejudice and some restraint against those that are in new media. It's only now that we are starting to see old media starting to embrace a little bit of new media, and we are starting to see the two blend together. And this is a definite example that we are seeing right over here, where technically we are having an Odd Ones Out series featuring and it's exactly like what you would expect. We got the main character, we got James Rallison represented as his usual Marshmallow Man character, and it is promising us the same kind of wacky stories that he would go and tell on his YouTube channel. So, it's actually pretty cool to see that, Netflix is embracing YouTube culture, and that they're opening up to making shows and collaborating with big name creators, because keep in mind, The Odd Ones Out, in terms of the YouTube channel, has almost 20 million subs, I believe. In the article on Animation Magazine, it states that he right now has over 17.8 million subscribers, which is a very admirable amount. And with that, and from there, it's actually pretty cool to see that now we can have YouTubers starting to create their own series on major streaming services or even major programs. Seeing a YouTuber on this level right now is honestly something that is highly admirable, and I would love to see more of. Actually, I would like to actually see YouTubers stepping up a little bit and actually create content, not just for YouTube, not just for the internet, but really for major platforms as well, like for television, for feature films, or even for streaming services. I would love to see either a movie or a show that would be created by either Jacksepticeye or Markiplier. Or how awesome would it be if you take the slow-mo guys and they would do their usual shtick of showing things in slow motion, but have their show be on Discovery or something. And that's just a few examples. And there are some that like a significant few that they are breaking the mold and really entering into like the entertainment industry. And there have been a few examples, like, yeah, there are some that have become like actors, for example, like we know Jacksepticeye has appeared in movies like Free Guy, or Ninja, for example, like he has also appeared in a few movies, or even Brian Hall, for example, that he started out as a big YouTube impersonator, and now he starred in Hotel Transylvania Transformania, replacing Adam Sandler to be one of the protagonists. You know, there are those examples, but then but it's another thing, though, that you would see YouTubers become like full-on creators in the levels of what James Rallison is actually doing. And yeah, some people are even mentioning and so like I already see in the chat wall, some people are even mentioning like some major projects that they have worked on. And some people have mentioned, yeah, there's like In Space with like you got In Space with Markiplier, but then again, that is like a YouTube thing. I mean, like Markiplier making a show like either on ABC or NBC or stuff like that. Or there is also like some people are even mentioning like YouTubers being in games also, like Jacksepticeye being in Poppy's Playtime, for example. Or some people are even mentioning like Smosh, or even Fred, or the Annoying Orange. And that is true. You know, that is true. Like there was a moment, like, even though they're not highly admirable YouTubers, people like Fred and the Annoying Orange, it is true that they had their own shows on Cartoon Network. That is actually another good example that you guys are actually bringing up. But then there are also others that I can think of, like another great example, Chris Stuckman, a very well-admired film critic. And right now, he's actually going to be producing his own feature film. I believe it's a horror flick that he is doing right now. And another great example, actually, Smiling Friends. Now, that is a wonderful animation example, because that actually feels like something that normally would belong on YouTube or on the internet, where you take the style that has been like considered a signature look for Newgrounds, specifically created by Michael Cusack and Zach Hadel, what they would do on their respective channels, and they would work together to create this series for Adult Swim, and now it is one of the biggest animated hits of 2022. So that, you know, and there are plenty of examples so far, like technically not a lot where it is common, but we know there have been some significant examples. Or some people are even mentioning Has Been Hotel, where Vivzy Pop is going to be taking that popular pilot and turning that into a major series with the help of A24. That's another great example. So from there, with the Odd Ones Out, you know, this is just another example of how things are going right now, and seeing more YouTubers now becoming major creators on like Netflix, or on TV channels, or in feature films. You know, it's great to actually see YouTubers climbing up the ladder in the entertainment industry, where like being a YouTube star can actually help you out in actually becoming a big entertainment star. That there are ways that Hollywood and YouTubers can work together in order to make great content, and hopefully that could be the case with Oddballs. However, there is also something that I do want to mention, and there is actually a controversy that is with Oddballs, because not many people are actually happy of the fact that there is going to be an Odd Ones Out animated series. And this is particularly because of what happened to Bone. We all know about like some of the turmoil that happened recently with Netflix, with their stocks going down, firing literally hundreds of employees, even just recently they they fired 300 people, and that they canceled numerous of animated shows, including the highly anticipated Bone series. And a lot of people very much got upset over that, and I guess they never got over it, because now the anger that they have because of that cancellation, they went all out against Oddballs, where now there are rumors that have been circulating around the internet that some people say that Netflix canceled Bone in favor of making an Odd1sOut series, which I just want to go and say it is not true at all. Like, all you have to do is just basic research of when the Bone series was made at Netflix and when James started to go and make the Odd1sOut Netflix series with Ethan Banville. Like, the difference between when those two were made are completely separate, mainly because of the fact that with Oddballs, the production of that actually started back as early as 2018, where with the Bone series, that went onto Netflix much later, like I think like at least a couple of years later. So from there, I think that's just the result of just people being so butthurt of something that they want so badly not actually happening, where they're just letting out their anger towards something else. And that seems to be exactly what we are seeing right now, where people are just so angry of the fact that Netflix is not going to be making that Bone series, where they decided in an unhealthy way to let out their anger towards the Odd1sOut, towards this Oddball series. But even at that, it's just not necessarily true. It's not because, it's not because of James Rallison why Bone got canceled in the first place. There is no proof of that. It's pretty much like this is pretty much like back a few years ago, or like probably, what is it, like 6 or 7 years ago, when people got massively upset at Sony Animation because the Popeye movie by Genndy Tartakovsky was canceled, and rumors speculated that it was because they wanted to go and do the Emoji Movie, which has been confirmed that this is not true at all, considering that what happened with Popeye and what happened with the Emoji Movie are two completely separate things. And with Popeye, that ended up getting canceled because, well, the executives just didn't like what they did on the animation test, and it's just simple as that. And it could be the case as well with what happened on Netflix. They're just not liking with how the production is going with Bone. They decided to cancel it, and what they were doing with Oddballs is a completely different subject altogether. So yeah, overall, with that said, I'm just going to say right now, again, I'm not going to go and immediately rush my way into watching Oddballs. However, if I hear some amazing things about it, maybe I'll consider it a watch. But honestly, in terms of its existence, I'm actually happy for it, I'm actually really happy for people like James Rallison that they're managing to break the mold and to break the system where now YouTubers can have their opportunity to work with major companies to make content for them, not just for YouTube, but now they can go and make content for other major platforms as well. Okay, and one more thing, by the way, if you guys are interested in watching Oddballs, then keep in mind, even though we don't necessarily have a release date, it will be coming out at the end of 2022. So, with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, how do you all feel about the Oddballs series? What do you think about the Odd1sOut finally having his own series on Netflix? Are you guys excited for it? Are you guys a little hesitant? Especially if you are a fan of the Odd1sOut, let me know what you think on this. Let's see now. I'm a big Odd1sOut fan. He's one of my favorite animation YouTubers, so it's really cool that he's getting a show. And going off that little snippet, the show itself looks like a lot of fun. So all in all, I'm down to check this out. Also, on the topic of YouTubers that made it in Hollywood, what about Flula Borg? I think he's probably the most prominent example. I've honestly never heard of Flula Borg. Hold on a sec. Let me double check on Flula Borg. Let's see now. Again, I've never actually heard of this guy before. I mean, like, you could be right. Like, he could be a legitimate example here. Let's see. Okay, like, he's worked with Red and Link, Miranda Sings, Smosh. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, so he was in Pitch Perfect 2. Wait, he's in the Suicide Squad? Who did he play? Hold on. Okay. Oh wow. Oh, hold on a sec. Oh wow. He's even okay. He even did some. Oh wow. He did a lot of stuff that. Oh wow. Okay, he did a lot more than. Okay, I'm actually a lot more familiar with him than I thought. Okay, so let's see. He was recently the DJ Snake in Chippendale Rescue Rangers. He was Javelin in the Suicide Squad. Wow, he did a lot of voices, surprisingly. He was Hans in Blue Sky's Ferdinand. Uh, let's see, what else do we have here? He was Alphonse in a few episodes of Tangled the series. He was Robot Man in a few episodes of Teen Titans Go. He was Dickory in Trolls World Tour. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, wow, you are correct on that. Wow, okay, so I've basically learned something new today. All right, yeah, no, but you brought in a very good example, actually. You brought in a good example there. I'm so excited Oddballs is a thing. I'm so excited James got to do this. Honestly, I only wish and hope my friends and my animation slash moving comics work can become like that. James us also a college dropout. James was also James is also a college dropout too, something that is really hard to get anywhere in this day and age. This gives me hope as a creator to make something for an industry. As for the bone rumor, I agree that's Bologna or baloney for those of you who want to correct that. I got canceled. It got canceled because Netflix stocks dropped. Exactly. Or I don't know if that is the reason, but yeah, like whatever it is, it's certainly not because of Oddballs. Let's see what else we have here. This is interesting. Personally, I haven't really watched The Odd Ones Out, but I do feel happy for James that he got to work with Netflix to work on this animated series, so I definitely wish him the best of luck. Also, I am so sick and tired of these people who would attack these shows because of other shows, because regardless of how you feel about the series, James and the people behind the show do not deserve these attacks. And besides, at least they didn't cancel Arcane in favor of Oddballs. Yeah, I mean, like, there's, like, I don't know. I don't think I know any actual case. Like, has this legitimately happened where one show got canceled in favor of another one being greenlit? I don't know. Like, I feel like with what we went through with Popeye and the Emoji Movie, and now with Bone and Oddballs, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's not something that does at least normally happen in the industry. Let's see what else we have here. What other comments would we have? I'm really happy that James is now going to make an animated show for Netflix. I am someone who watched some of his videos and other Storytime animators. The show itself looks really cute and simple, and that I might give it a watch on Netflix. I hope there will be tons of cameos and references from his videos. Oh yeah, I think that would be I think that would be a great opportunity to have like those like little cameos, you know. It's kind of, or like just bring in like his friends to go and like help things out, you know, like to be like animators or to be voices in there. I know that's exactly what they did in that's what they did in Smiling Friends, where a lot of the voices are actually some of like Michael and Zach's friends, where they got like James Rolfe to be the devil, or they got Chris O'Neill to play some of the voices. In fact, like several of the people from Oni Plays actually does do some voices in Smiling Friends. So maybe we'll see the same thing with Oddballs, where a lot of Storytime animators can actually have cameos in this. Let's see. Like you, Matt, I'm not too familiar to the Out's work. Putting aside, this does look like a rather wacky and fun show with some rather good potential. Considering this and the success of works like Smiling Friends and Has Been Hotel, this really feels like the beginning of a new era where YouTubers are making their own shows and even movies. Exactly, you know, and even for someone like me, as a YouTuber myself, it's very admirable to see YouTubers really breaking the mold and actually entering into the Hollywood system, where that, yes, YouTube or Twitch can be a justifiable way to enter yourself into the industry. So that is something that is very admirable, and something that, like, even for myself, someone who's trying to get into the acting business, like I do hope one day I could be someone like what JF has mentioned, like be like Flula Borg. You know, I would like to be like that guy one day, or like with Brian Hall also. All right, I think I'm going to read one more comment before we move on to our next story. Let's see. I have seen one of his videos before, and I'm very, very happy for James for getting into the Hollywood scene. Although I'm not anticipated to watch the series, I could say I'm glad that YouTubers got into big productions from major studios such as Netflix, so major congrats to Brian Hall, Michael Plyer, and the Odd Ones Out. And I think that's the best way to go and to cap this story off, at least. So congratulations to James Rallison and for his team to actually have Oddballs be made. And hopefully the show can turn out great. And we'll see how things go when the show will premiere on Netflix later on at the end of the year. All right, so moving on to our next story, we have a little bit of a bonus miscellaneous here, and we're going to go back into the subject of Sony and how they've been handling Spider-Man. Oh boy, we know that subject is a little bit of a doozy right over there. Now, last time we've talked about this, we've mentioned about how Sony has been handling with their re-releases, where after they re-released Morbius, because of all the memes that have been going on with It's Morbin Time, that turned out to be an absolute disaster and really cemented Morbius to become a full-on failure. And then they have later announced that they would do a re-release of Spider-Man No Way Home, where they would go and release an extended edition on the big screen. But for now, I think it is safe to say that when it comes to Sony handling their live action movies, like if you look outside of the ones from the MCU and if you look outside of the ones made by Sony Pictures Animation, people have been losing a lot of faith on Sony Pictures when it comes to making those live-action Spider-Man movies. The Spider-Man-less Spider-Man spin-off universe, if you will. I know technically there is another term, but that's what it really feels like. They're Spider-Man-less Spider-Man movies. And when it comes to their next one, I'm just going to say it's not helping their case at all. And what I'm talking about is in regards to Kraven the Hunter. Yes, for those of you who don't know, coming soon, I believe it's going to be in January of 2023. You can go and correct me if I'm wrong on that. But their next movie with Spider-Man characters, which is going to be Kraven the Hunter, right now has a significant update. And this is actually going to be coming from the actor who will be playing Kraven the Hunter, which is Aaron Taylor Johnson. Now, when he spoke with Variety, excuse me, when he went and spoke with Variety, he went on a little tour with Sony Pictures to go and promote what Sony is offering, specifically at Cine Europe, where they would go and discuss about like their future offerings, rather it be Aaron Taylor Johnson talking about his contribution to Bullet Train, or talking about some stuff like the upcoming family film Lyle Lyle Crocodile, for example. You know, like Sony is just going around talking about the upcoming stuff that they have, or at least what they have for the rest of the year. And when it comes to Aaron Taylor Johnson, he did talk a little bit about what's going to be happening with Kraven the Hunter. What are they going to do with that spinoff, considering that's going to be part of the same universe as the Venom movies and with Morbius? And here is what he has to say, specifically going into my source here on Variety. It's right over here, in which he states, Taylor Johnson also spoke about his experience shooting Kraven the Hunter, which, by the way, I do believe they have finished up filming with that movie. So now the people at Sony are starting to enter into post-production with it, in which who he described as one of Marvel's most iconic, notorious anti-heroes, Spider-Man's #1 rival. I know you might have something to say, but hold on, there is more. He said he found it exciting, the fact that this character is not an alien or a wizard. He's just a hunter, a human with conviction, an animal lover, and a protector of the natural world. He's a very, very cool character. He added that unlike other Marvel movies, this one is shot entirely on location. And that's the big thing that people have been talking about in terms of Kraven the Hunter. It's the fact that Sony is going to be really changing up the character, where now he is an animal lover and that he will be protecting nature. And from the looks of things, it looks like the Kraven the Hunter movie is going to have an obviously big environmental message. And I just want to go and start things off that I would say that yes, I am a Spider-Man fan, not like a full-on diehard Spider-Man fan, but maybe more of a casual Spider-Man fan, where I have watched some of the shows, especially Spectacular Spider-Man, which is really awesome. And there is also like the movies as well. I have seen like the Sam Raimi films, and I mean, goes without saying, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I am a little bit familiar as well with Kraven the Hunter. And the first thing that I want to go and comment is regarding what Aaron Taylor Johnson stated in regards to Kraven the Hunter. The fact that he is one of Marvel's most iconic, notorious anti-heroes, Spider-Man's #1 rival. I'm sorry, what? I don't know about you, but I would honestly argue with that. Because let's actually get into that statement, shall we? Let's actually think about what he actually said. Spider-Man's #1 rival. Would that actually be considered true? I would like to, you know what? I want to go into the chat wall. Do you guys think Kraven the Hunter is Spider-Man's #1 rival? Do you guys think so? Let me go and ask you guys. Do you think he is? Let me just see now. Chat wall, what do you think? Come on. I know you'll say it. Ah, there we go. Okay. No. Oh, someone said #1 underrated. Okay, that's fine. All right. Let's see. No. Someone is trying to pull the actually he was the villain and technically he is a rival. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, is he Spider-Man's #1 rival? And it looks like the answer is no. And it's very interesting because honestly, I did think about this. Who would actually be Spider-Man's #1 rival? And honestly, you guys in the chat wall actually did write down what I honestly thought as well. Like, honestly, you, in a way, you kind of read my mind, or we really do agree, because if there would be a definitive villain that would be considered as Spider-Man's #1 rival, the Joker or the Lex Luthor of the Spider-Man world, it would be one of three options. It would be the Green Goblin, it would be Doc Ock, or it would be Venom. It would be one of those three. And I mean, there are some contenders as well. Some people are mentioning maybe Norman Osborn, or like I thought of some others like maybe Electro or Rhino or maybe Vulture. But honestly, it would be those main three people, those main three villains. It would either be Venom or Green Goblin or Doc Ock that would be Spider-Man's #1 rival. Like the ones that like truly earn the title of actually being called iconic. And as for the others, well, I mean, they could be legitimate contenders. And I mean, and I just want to state right now, this is not to put down Kraven the Hunter as a character. I've honestly heard a lot of great things about Kraven as a character in the comics, and maybe in some of the shows as well, but especially in the comics, he actually is a very well-established villain and poses as a legitimate threat to Spider-Man. Like, he is written well. But honestly, when it comes to who would be the #1 rival for Spider-Man, I would not even put Kraven the Hunter among the top 5, let alone even call him either iconic or even a notorious anti-hero. Like, and also that's another thing that I want to mention. Anti-hero? Like, from a lot of the stuff that I've heard about Kraven the Hunter, he ain't no hero. Maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it is very rare that Kraven the Hunter would actually be a legitimate anti-hero. Maybe there was one time that he did actually pair up with, that he actually teamed up with Spider-Man, but other than that, he has been like a full-on unapologetic villain, and that's it. All right, so I just want to go and get that comment out of the way. But then you would also have the message, like basically the idea that Kraven the Hunter is an animal lover and a protector of the natural world. All right, now in terms of that comment, like trying to turn Kraven the Hunter into an animal lover, now for that one, I just want to go ahead and make this statement right now. Okay, first off, I get it. I mean, the thing is that Sony Pictures wants to create a Kraven the Hunter movie where he is the main character and Spider-Man is nowhere to be found in the movie whatsoever. Okay, now in that regard, I completely get it. I completely understand that you would have to go and switch things up in terms of what you want to do with the character, that you have to make significant updates and maybe change things up in terms of his personality, of his origin story. Like, yeah, there might be some alterations that you have to do to make him more of an anti-hero, to make him more like, you know, to make him more of his own thing and not be reliant of what he would do with Spider-Man. Okay, now in that regard, I completely understand it's not necessarily an easy task, and it is true that changes have to be done. But turning Kraven into an animal lover. All right, let me just go and show you a picture, folks. Like, okay, let me just show you guys. Take a look at this picture. Like, let me just show you this, okay? Here's a picture of Kraven the Hunter. Do you notice something peculiar with the guy? Like, the thing is, with Kraven the Hunter, just looking at his image, like, one of the key signature things that he has is that he would be wearing animal fur, like full-on animal fur. In fact, the shirt that he is wearing over here is a full-on lion head. And a lot of people would even argue that this lion head that he's wearing as a shirt is kind of his signature trait. You know, that's what, like, one of his most popular outfits, and everything else, well, it's basically made out of animal fur. And now you're turning the guy into an environmentalist, that he's turned into an animal lover and a protector of the natural world? Okay, now there's a fine line between changing the character and just literally going 180 on him. Okay, like maybe there might be an idea of what you can do in terms of like being a hunter of hunters per se. Like now he's going to go out of his way and use his hunting skills to fight off against poachers and stuff like that. But it just feels like you're not just going out of character, but you're kind of like doing the opposite of who Kraven the Hunter is. And that is going to be something that is very concerning. And I feel like you're really going to end up alienating a lot of Spider-Man fans. Like, maybe there is a chance that they could actually find a way to work on its own, but it's going to be hard to imagine that when it comes to Spider-Man fans and when it comes to comic book fans, like people who are familiar with Kraven the Hunter, from there, I feel like there's going to be a hard chance that they will they'll feel rejected, that they'll feel alienated, that it would feel like a bit of a disrespect where Sony is just telling Spider-Man fans that they don't care about them and that they just care about just making money off of the Spider-Man properties. And that's going to be a major factor that I wouldn't be surprised if Kraven the Hunter might end up becoming a flop in the same level as Morbius. And even at that, like right now, even analysts are saying that it's pretty much hard to imagine at this point that this Kraven the Hunter would become a major hit in the first place. I mean, let alone the fact that it's going to be released in January, which is often considered to be a dead month for movies. But on top of that, there's even this one article that does talk about the situation here on Forbes, and they even mentioned the fact that that considering that it is starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, let's be honest, and this is no disrespect towards the actor, but he's not necessarily an A-list celebrity per se. This is not necessarily a name where he's gonna go and sell tickets. Just to quickly read you here, it states, I have very, very little doubt that if Jared Leto's Morbius was a bomb, Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is an even less known star, will not be able to make this anti-Kraven some sort of big box office success. I suppose I could be wrong, but Venom really seems like seems like a fluke at this point, and Sony's Spider-Man less Spider-Man plans are getting increasingly bizarre as time goes on. This isn't even the weirdest concept, as that would be a movie they're doing for El Muerto, a villain who only appeared in the entire history of Spider-Man comics for like 12 pages. But yeah, and there are several factors, like Aaron Taylor Johnson not necessarily being big, and the trust that people have for Sony Pictures with them making their own Spider-Man films is starting to really be dwindling. Like it's starting to become like more poor and poor and poor. Like it's going down to the point where like people are going to be no longer interested in seeing whatever Sony would offer in terms of the Spider-Man films, and it would end up becoming less and less profitable for Sony Pictures. So yeah, this is honestly at the point where it's hard to imagine the future of these like Spider-Man movies, especially when they still have big plans ahead that they want to do, like the El Muerto movie, or they want to do that Madam Web movie like next year. It's just at this point, like, if Kraven the Hunter doesn't do well, then it's hard to imagine what the other movies are going to do. It's just, it's honestly crazy at this point. It's not going well, but who knows? I'll just say right now, I could totally be wrong, and maybe Sony will actually find a way to actually make this good. Maybe they can find a way to make Kraven the Hunter an animal lover, and they can actually find a way to respect the character who he is in the comics. There could be that miracle that Sony will find a way to actually make this work with Kraven the Hunter. Like, I am open to that option. But for now, I will say that it is hard to imagine that they could legitimately do so. So I just want to go and make that statement right now. All right, so with that said, I'd like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you guys, how do you feel about the animal-loving Kraven the Hunter movie? Are you guys excited for Kraven the Hunter to become an animal lover? Are you guys curious to watch this, or do you think it is immediately a disaster? Let me know what you guys think on this. Okay. I'll start here, actually. I've actually never heard of Kraven the Hunter, so this is the first time I'm hearing about him, and I feel bad for myself. Calling him Spider-Man's #1 villain is like saying Infinite from Sonic Forces is Sonic's #1 villain, and turning him into an animal lover sounds absolutely ridiculous to where it is becoming questionable. Maybe when the trailer comes out it could work, but for now, I'm not interested. Exactly, and if there are people like him who has never actually heard of Kraven the Hunter, that could also be something that is detrimental to the movie. Like, at least with Venom, a big part of why he is a hit is because Venom is a well-known Spider-Man villain. He is a well-known comic book villain in general, and has made a significant mark in Marvel's history. Kraven the Hunter, on the other hand, like, he's probably in that same level of Morbius, where it's more like it's people who are really into comics and are really into Marvel that are more familiar with him, more so than the general public. Let's see now. I'm not gonna lie, after Morbius, I've lost all faith in the SSCU, but after this, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Turning Kraven into Fluttershy is a weird move, dude. What's next? Turning Morbius into a poetry fan? Turning Nick Fury into an interior designer? Or better yet, turning Quicksilver into a weird boner joke? That's preposterous. Oh, wait a sec, that really happened. Ah, well, still a weird choice, but not the weirdest choice of the cinematic universe. Remember that Matt Smith boogie in Morbius? Ah, that is true. And I mean, the funny thing with Morbius, now that he's gonna be like an animal lover and stuff like that, it does make me wonder, like, are they just gonna like still make him an anti-hero where now like Morbius is gonna become like a PETA activist? Is that gonna be a way to help balance things out, where he's gonna go from one extreme to the other extreme, where now he's gonna be running around towards random people? Like, you'll just see him being a maniac, like in the streets of New York, holding up like papers saying, "Look at this picture of a sad pig and you should feel bad about it." He's gonna go into that level of PETA. Like, look at this! Look at that tortured puppy! You should feel ashamed. I want you to feel sad by looking at something unpleasant. Oh my God. I just realized just looking at myself, did I just turn myself into that meme? You know, like that weird neckbeard meme of like, oh. You're welcome, internet, by the way. I think I just gave everyone like a little meme opportunity there. Oh boy, what the fridge have I done? All right, let's see what else. I don't know a lot about Kraven the Hunter as a character, but hearing Aaron Taylor Johnson describe him as an animal lover and a protector of the natural world, while this guy is literally called a hunter, is just way too ridiculous for me to understand. Also, Matt, while I'm not a fan of the description, I actually think there is some hope for the movie. It's mainly because the director of the movie has made a lot of acclaimed indie films. They aren't that popular, but at least that is encouraging. I mean, yeah, that is true. I mean, that could help that, like, you would have like a respectable filmmaker to work on this. But then again, you got to keep in mind it is Sony Pictures, and they can have a pretty infamous reputation when it comes to meddling, especially when it comes to executive meddling with a lot of the Spider-Man movies, like what we've recently seen with stuff like Morbius and the Venom films. So I don't know, like it's not really the filmmakers that people are opposed to. It's it's really Sony and its executives with what they want to do with the film. And I mean, granted, you are right. There is that chance where the filmmaker will actually do a great job, but I don't know. I still have my doubts. It's hard to break those doubts. All right, let's see now. Let me get this straight, Sony. You want to make Kraven the Hunter not just an anti-hero, but basically Snow White, which goes against the main nature of his character? Are you kidding me, guys? They are littering and not learning the lessons of what they did to Morbius, and I, for one, can't support this decision as a Spider-Man fan, and this guy is known for hunting animals, including wearing a lion vest. Sorry, but I feel like it's gonna end badly for Sony when this comes out. Yeah, oh boy, yeah, let's just say that 2023 will be a very interesting year for Sony Pictures, especially when it comes to their Spider-Man movies. Yes, we're all excited for Across the Spider-Verse, but are people going to be excited for Kraven and Madam Web? I don't know. Let's see. I'll read one more comment before we cap this off with the final story. Let's see now. Okay. No, did I read this one? No, I don't think I read that one. I don't know a lot about Kraven the Hunter as a character. No, wait, no. Oh, no. I already read that one. Sorry. Yeah, okay, I'll go with this one. I remember having a conversation a few years ago with one of my uncles. He's a big collector of Spider-Man comics, and a few times we talked about Kraven. He would place the Hunter in his top 5 Spider-Man comic villains. That said, he isn't a big fan of the Spider-Man live-action movies, both the Sam Raimi and the modern recent ones, but he absolutely loves Into the Spider-Verse, oddly enough. That said, isn't Kraven's daughter one of Spidey's lovers? I mean, I don't know too deep. I don't really know that deep into the Spider-Man mythology. Maybe you're right, but I don't know. Who knows? But maybe Sony has a plan, but it's not looking like a plan that people actually like. And this could be something that could really cost Sony a lot of money. Alrighty, folks. It is actually time that we finally get into the grand finale. And I know what some of you are thinking. Isn't it a little too soon to have a grand finale? Well, yes, and there are 2 reasons for that. Number one being that, well, it was a pretty dry week when it comes to animation news. Like, the past few weeks, like, we had a massive abundance of them, and nowadays it's been a little bit dry, and it was a little bit tricky to try to find some actual animation news or entertainment news in general to talk about here. That, and also there is another significant reason, and that is because in a few hours I actually have to leave, and I gotta go downtown, mainly because I got a screening to attend. I was actually very lucky enough to actually have an early screening for Minions: The Rise of Gru. So yes, I will be checking out this movie soon, and this is a confirmation that this week there will be a review of Minions: The Rise of Gru that will be coming out at the same time as the movie's release. So that's actually going to be pretty exciting. It's actually been a long time since I've actually been in one of these screenings, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But with that said, now going back into the grand finale story that we will be talking about, we will be discussing about an anniversary to a fan favorite movie. And kind of a coincidence, actually, because as I am recording this, it is the 25th anniversary of the Disney fan favorite Hercules. But that's actually not the one that I want to go and discuss. Instead, what I do want to talk about is actually in regards to the 20th anniversary of Lilo and Stitch. Yes, for those of you who haven't heard, 20 years ago, a few days ago, it was the 20th anniversary of the release of the Disney fan favorite film Lilo and Stitch, which debatably was the only animated feature back in the early 2000s that managed to save Disney animation, or at least to keep them afloat during a time when they've been releasing like several box office bombs that made them lose a lot of money, whether it be Fantasia 2000, Atlantis: The Lost Empire, or even Treasure Planet. And from there, Lilo and Stitch ended up getting a massive reputation, where from there, they would go and have a massive legacy, like one of the biggest Disney animated franchises in recent years. And you know that I've talked plenty about Lilo and Stitch, especially in Animation Look Back. And funny enough, not long ago, actually, I did do a review of Lilo and Stitch. And with Stitch, you probably have seen some of the TV shows or even the anime that is based on Stitch. You've probably have seen like the different spin-off films, or like the sequel, or Leroy and Stitch, or Stitch the movie, or what have you. Like Stitch, I could even say that Stitch was a phenomenon of the 2000s. And to celebrate the 20th anniversary, the New York Times actually posted this special article called Lilo and Stitch at 20, how it broke the mold long before Moana, and talked to some of the filmmakers and talked to other people in regards to the legacy of Stitch and what Disney went through in order to go and create Lilo and Stitch. And even as the title suggests, they would go and make some comparisons to some of the modern Disney movies that they would have today, including Moana, where it mentioned, like as it states, how it broke the mold long before Moana, basically referencing the fact that Lilo and Stitch, even like more than a decade before Moana, that Lilo and Stitch would be the one to have like full-on Asian Pacific representation, and would actually have those like Asian Pacific people to be presented as like strong female leads with Lilo and Nani. However, this article did state that with Lilo and Stitch, they didn't do as much like in-depth research in terms of the accuracy of Asian Pacific culture as Moana did. In fact, just to go a little bit down into my source on Time Magazine, I believe it's should find it. Yeah, it's actually this part right here. It states, the production did not take steps that Moana would, like hiring a Hawaiian writing and directing team. Though Roberts, the Xavier University scholar, specifically, they are referring to, by the way, Sharon Roberts, going back into here, said its more realistic depiction of Hawaii was a start. Disney has really struggled to tell Asian Pacific stories. That's why they spend so much time putting together a brain trust around Moana, a film that had a far better reception from the casting, to make sure that certain parts of the story arcs didn't border on stereotypes. So there would be a few more lessons about bringing people to the table to support their writing team. And yeah, like it is true that technically when you do think about Lilo and Stitch, like maybe like if you would have a choice between Moana and Lilo and Stitch in terms of what would be the best Asian Pacific representation, a lot of people would probably lean more towards Moana, especially really diving deep into its culture more so than Lilo and Stitch, where they're just where they're just depicted as like living in a modern suburban Hawaii. But the big reason why this article specifically has been talked about, it's not necessarily because of the legacy of Lilo and Stitch. It's not necessarily because of the comparison to Moana, but it's primarily because of the comparison to Frozen. And it's actually just a small little excerpt right at the end when talking with Chris Sanders in regards to Frozen. And it's this little passage here why this article went viral and why Lilo and Stitch and Frozen got a little bit popular on social media, where it states here, for his part, Sanders wishes more people would notice how the relationship between the two sisters anticipates Frozen by more than a decade. He stated, to be clear, I think Frozen is great, but it was a little bit frustrating for me because people were like, finally, a non-romantic relationship with these two girls. And I thought, we did that. That has absolutely been done before. And that is the big commentary that people have been making. The subject between the sisterhood represented in both Frozen and Lilo and Stitch. And from there, of course, you've seen a lot of arguments. Which one did it better? Is it Frozen? Is it Lilo and Stitch? And all that kind of stuff. And I find it to be an interesting topic because it is true that there are some comparisons, but when you do actually think about it, there are some noticeable differences as well. And there is actually a logical explanation as to why is it that Frozen got all the fame and glory for that sisterhood representation more so than Lilo and Stitch. Now, by the way, before I begin, I just want to go and express my opinions quickly of what I think about both films, by the way. Now, this and my reason and my explanations will have nothing to do with it, but it is important to go and mention my opinions on them each. Now, personally, I find that both Frozen and Lilo and Stitch are great movies. They are definitely great in terms of what they would do. Beautifully animated, nicely written, definitely great in their own merits. Personally, I prefer Frozen a little more than Lilo and Stitch because Lilo and Stitch does feel a little bit disjointed, where the alien aspect and the sisterhood aspect feels very separated. But still, though, both of them great films of their own right and both worth watching. But anyways, going back into the sisterhood aspect, it is true that when you do think about it, both Lilo and Stitch and Frozen, they're very similar when it comes to their sisterhood, where both of them, they are a very prominent theme in the feature, and a big part of their films do rely on the relationship between the two sisters throughout the feature film, where we see this complex relationship that is going on. Not to mention the fact that with both of those sisters, they only have each other. In both cases of Lilo and Nani and Anna and Elsa, their parents are dead. So they don't necessarily have the help of others. Maybe the help of a few extra characters, rather it be from Stitch or David, or maybe even like Kristoff and Olaf and Sven. But primarily, the sisters only have each other in terms of family. But there are two noticeable differences that are actually really worth pointing out, and why people's perspectives of each of their sisterhood is actually very different. Number one, the big difference between the two is the age gap. The age gap between each of the sisters. Now, when it comes to Lilo and Nani, there is a very significant difference. Lilo is a 5-year-old girl, where Nani, on the other hand, I believe she's already an adult, where she's already established like as a full-on 18-year-old, maybe 16, maybe 21, but you know, she is a lot more older, and like she's the one carrying all the responsibilities and stuff like that. And because of that, not only is Nani supposed to be a sister to Lilo, but she has to be like a surrogate mother, where Lilo is still extremely young and Nani still has to go and take care of her, where she has to still go and like have a job and make sure she is financially stable so that she could feed Lilo, she could take care of Lilo and all that kind of stuff. She still has to go and take care of her in a way like a mother would. And that's why, in a way, like even back then, there has often been a bit of a mistranslation where for some people, they would register that with Nani and with Lilo, that it was more of a mother and daughter relationship, because often that's what it seemed to have looked like. Like there are some people, yeah, they won't actually pay attention, but even like if you would go and look at like a picture, like if you would have a first impression with what you see here, like with Nani, Lilo, and Stitch, that they're all surfing. Like at first glance, without any context of the movie, you would think that Nani is actually Lilo's mother. But that is actually not the case. They're actually sisters. And it's because of that misconception is why not many people would immediately think that, oh yes, they're obviously sisters. Like Lilo is Nani's sister, of course. So there is that aspect where the age gap can play a significant difference. But in Frozen, on the other hand, that age gap is actually very small, like probably a 2-3 year difference. But the movie made it very clear, and they are very straightforward of the fact that with Anna and with Elsa, they are indeed sisters. Like it's pretty obvious. They're both around the same age. They're both, give or take, like they are young adults. They're both kind of going through the same thing. Even though Elsa, like, she doesn't necessarily have to take care of Anna, like she's the one, like she is the older sister that has to take a bit more responsibility because now she has to rule the kingdom of Arendelle. But still, they are indeed sisters in this case, and they are a lot more straightforward and a lot more understandable, where if you do look at a picture of Anna and Elsa, that's when you could pretty much say, oh yeah, they're definitely sisters. They even look a bit, they kind of look alike. So it does make sense to say that Anna and Elsa are sisters. So there's no misconception. Like even the first impression, you can immediately say they are indeed sisters or they're friends or whatever. But if they do have a family connection, it's that they are sisters. So that's my big reason, number one, of how Frozen has a lot more, attention as sister, as that they are sisters more so than with Lilo and Nani. But the reason number two is a major significant factor, and that is in regards to the central character of the franchise. It is a big difference right there. And I think that is the key factor as to why not many people often think that Lilo and Stitch is a movie about sisterhood. Because in Lilo and Stitch, the central figure of the entire franchise is Stitch. It's the little blue alien. Like the big thing that is trying to like bring people into watching Lilo and Stitch and the kind of content that they would release, whether it be the movies or the TV shows or whatever. People want to come in to see the crazy blue alien misbehave and just go crazy. And from there, because of that massive attention, many people, like when you would say Lilo and Stitch, the first thing that people would think of is actually Stitch, especially when Stitch is the central figure for the marketing as well. Like, I'm sure that there are a lot more toys, there's a lot more merchandise that's based on Stitch than for either Lilo or Nani. So because of that, considering that Stitch has nothing really to do with the sisterhood, I mean, like, yes, like he is a part of the family, but he's not necessarily in the sisterhood per se, which does take away from people's mindset from thinking that Lilo and Stitch has that sisterhood theme. Not to mention, I'll even add that technically, even though there is that sisterhood theme, like, that's not necessarily the main theme of Lilo and Stitch. It's actually more about family in general than it is about sisterhood, especially when in Lilo and Stitch, they would keep on repeating that Ohana means family and family means no one gets left behind. That it's more important to include Stitch into the family than just focusing on the sisterhood of Nani and Lilo. And that's why, and that I think honestly plays a very significant factor into why we don't think much about the sisterhood of Lilo and Nani. If anything, if you're upset about it, then you should probably blame the Disney marketers more so than Frozen. But then you would have Frozen. Like, if we look into Frozen, on the other hand, the central figure of that franchise is Elsa. It is the magical, it's the magical ice queen. She's the one, you come in to go and see this girl who becomes the queen of Arendelle, and she has all these like magical ice powers, and that she would sing these epic songs like Let It Go, Into the Unknown, or Show Yourself. Like, that's the key, that's like the big appeal and like the big magnet to attract audiences to go and watch the movies and stuff like that. It is because of Elsa. And considering that Elsa is part of that sisterhood, it makes the sisterhood theme a lot more obvious and a lot more prominent, because you focus on Elsa and you focus on what is around her. That's when you immediately recognize that she does have a sister named Anna, and that they have a complex yet loving relationship. And that plays a very significant role, because the sister is prominently present, and that also means that the sisterhood is the sisterhood theme is also prominently present as well. And I think that overall, that is the big reason as to why Frozen is a lot more praised for its depiction of sisterhood, more so than Lilo and Stitch. Now, this is not to say that one is better than the other. I think both movies handled the sisterhood theme extremely well. But the factor that the age gap kind of confused audiences at first, and that and on top of that, the central figure is someone who is not a part of the princesses and is almost the princesses, that it's not related to the sisters and is kind of like unrelated to that theme, kind of makes it a bit easy to forget. So it's a little bit so honestly, it's more the marketing of Lilo and Stitch that kind of screwed that over. Where with Frozen, on the other hand, the big theme is sisterhood. The central figure is one of the sisters, and why it's a lot more obvious. Why Frozen stands out a lot more as a movie about sisterhood, more so compared to Lilo and Stitch. So honestly, I just wanted to go and express my entire thought. Did I have a glitch? I'm sorry. Someone is mentioning, it was like, oh, is it a magical Mac glitch? I don't know. Can you guys still see me? Are we okay in here? I just want to know. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried that things aren't working well with the stream. Okay. Oh, no. Everybody is fine. Okay, it's good. All right, thank you. Oh my God, I almost got scared there. But yeah, you guys get what I mean, though. It's just, honestly, I just wanted to go and express my entire piece on this whole situation. I just wanted to go and explain the deep situation. And I know that this is an opportunity that a lot of people would love to use to dunk on Frozen and say that Lilo and Stitch is better because Lilo and Stitch is the first to make the sisterhood. But I feel like it's a lot more of a complex situation, and that there is a lot more to it, and that there is a difference between how both these stories have handled sisterhood. But either way, for me, both these movies are great. Both these movies handle the sisterhood theme very, very well. And congratulations to 20 years of Lilo and Stitch. All right, so with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, how do you all feel about Lilo? How do you feel about the whole discussion about the sisterhood of Lilo and Stitch and Frozen? Do you feel like how do you feel? Do you think there is a major difference? Is there one that you prefer over the other? Let me know what you all think on this. Okay, let's see now. Personally, I find Lilo and Stitch and Frozen are both great animated films, but personally, I prefer Lilo and Stitch a little bit more than Frozen. Although I do find the sisterhood aspect of Frozen a little better and more believable and prominent. And another thing that both movies have in common is that they both have a marketable and profitable character with Stitch and Olaf. But regardless, happy 20th anniversary to Lilo and Stitch, one of my favorite Disney animated films. All right, that's definitely fair. And you do bring up a very good point, actually, because the problem with Lilo and Stitch is that imagine if the central figure of Frozen is not Elsa, but rather Olaf, that he's a lot more prominent and plays a far bigger role than either Anna and Elsa. Now, at that point, that would make that would put Frozen in a similar situation with Lilo and Stitch. So that is actually a good example that you did bring up there with the thing with Olaf, because yeah, like Olaf is kind of like Frozen Stitch, but the thing with Frozen is that they did put Olaf on the side so that the sisterhood can be a lot more prominent. Let's see. First off, I want to say is happy 20th anniversary to Lilo and Stitch. I just want to say that I love both this film and Frozen. These two films are completely different storylines, while have some similar themes about sisterhood, and that's it. Lilo and Stitch was more of a sci-fi comedy compared to a fairy tale adventure film. Again, I love both and should be watched over and over again. All right, that's nice. Anyone else? Here we go. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been what you call a Lilo and Stitch connoisseur. I've watched the movie, the direct-to-video sequels, and the show, and I have enjoyed them all. Even to this day, Lilo and Stitch still remains one of my favorite Disney movies of all time, and while I do acknowledge that Frozen does some things better, I would still prefer Lilo and Stitch. I even got a Stitch mug from Disney on Ice that I still own to this day. And and honestly, I just want to say right now, I think that is one thing that Stitch has over Frozen, and that is in terms of age. It's the nostalgia of it all, because Frozen is not even 10 years old, but with Lilo and Stitch, the fact that it is 20 years old, it has a lot more nostalgia value for it. So of course there are going to be some people who will take Stitch's side, not necessarily because of how it is as a movie, but because of their personal connection to it with Stitch. So I think that is one thing that I would say in terms of the arguments that you would see online, that is one significant factor onto why we see a lot more love for Stitch than Frozen, or why people would prefer to take Stitch over Frozen, is because nostalgia does play a significant factor. We can't ignore that. Let's see now. I'm personally more of a Lilo and Stitch fan than a Frozen fan, due to the former being one of my childhood Disney films, as I rewatch the films and TV series more. See what I mean there? Although I'm very happy that we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of Lilo and Stitch, I find it curious how both this and Frozen are similar to one another, with the latter gaining more popularity since that one managed to connect with audiences more. Regardless, happy anniversary to Lilo and Stitch after 20 years. All right. Let's see. I think I'm going to go and go with one more comment here. I feel like the reason why Frozen gets the sisterhood theme credit is also white favoritism too. People forget Luz is the main character in the Owl House and focus on her white girlfriend. Oh boy, if we're gonna be talking about race, I think that's a whole different subject right over there. I mean, honestly, that's another can of worms to open, and I mean, that could be an entire discussion in regards to the race of Lilo and Stitch and in Frozen right over there. But I think with that said and done, that should do it for this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. I know it's been pretty tough lately, but hopefully, if we do take action, things will indeed get better. So please, if you can register, if you are allowed to do so, go and vote, and please vote for blue, and please go and help donate to organizations such as Planned Parenthood. And hopefully things will get better by the next episode. So with all that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.